Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash Season 8, and this is going to be my review for episode 20 for this season, otherwise known as the finale for Season 8, otherwise entitled Negative Part 2, and of course, going to be talking about everything that happened in this finale in this episode, so go away if you've not watched it. And of course, this episode's a bit of a weird one, because I really want to talk about the ending, but at the same time, I'm not really 100% sure, but we'll get around to it. But of course, throughout the video, if you haven't watched the episode, let me know in the comments section down below your various thoughts, opinions, obviously theories and predictions moving forward into Season 9, and also what you'd give this season as a whole, I guess, out of 10. Like, is it a 7? Is it a 9? Is it a 10? Is it an 8? Is it a 2? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Curious to hear what you guys think of the season as a whole, as well as the finale, because I have issues with the finale, but they don't really detract too much from my overall thoughts of the season. But yeah, of course, do all that, and if you enjoyed the video, you enjoyed the episode, you enjoyed the season, why not drop a like on the video to do all that? So last episode we had the negative forces making themselves known, with the negative Dion killing Thawne in Lian Yu, but later it being revealed that he was never the sacrifice that he needed, that Iris was actually the sacrifice needed all along. This leads to Barry hitting Iris with his own lightning unwillingly, giving birth back to Thawne through the displaced Thawne that was working with Meena Dhawan. So that ending was insane, leading into this finale. Now, as I said, overall, this episode, this finale, I had issues with, but I think all the issues within it were issues from various points of the season revolving around certain characters. So I expected it because they were left without an ending in the previous episode or episodes. So I expected them to come out in this finale just so they wrap it up. But yeah, those are the major weak points. And obviously, some people might be a bit nitpicky because this was originally set out to be a series finale potentially if The Flash didn't get season 9. Obviously, they had time to rework it and everything, like once they knew they were getting picked up. But there are points where you think that like this is like the big climactic end of the show, and then just sort of keeps going. So like it might feel a bit weird to some people when they're watching. But we pick up in this episode right where we left off at the end of last episode with Eobard Thawne, after being reborn, with him explaining that the negative forces brought him back in order to make them stronger as well. And he also mentions that like killing Nora led to the birth of the Flash, and killing Iris led to the birth of Reverse Flash. So at least they were good for something, which I thought was an interesting little burn from Thawne there. Now, Barry does attack Thawne, and he's pretty much trying to kill him, but luckily Bart and Nora arrive from the future and are able to talk Barry out of crossing that line. Thawne doesn't thank them. He doesn't thank Bart and Nora. He actually threatens to kill them next, so I guess that's maybe like a thank you from Thawne, not too sure. However, Bart and Nora do give Barry some hope, or at least they're trying to give him some hope, due to the fact that they are still alive. So that means Iris can't really be dead because they're still alive. However, we've dealt with this before on not only The Flash, but just other shows that involve time travel. Time takes a while to settle and become concrete, so Bart and Nora still should be alive for a bit until they start to feel the effects of Iris not being there. And you can argue that you'd have to get to the point in the timeline where they are born and then they aren't born for them to start disappearing. Some would argue that. Some would argue it's just a certain amount of time of Iris being quote unquote dead before something happens to them. It probably works either way. Now, in regards to what the negative forces are planning with Thawne, that's another question. But Barry wants to gain access into the negative speed force in order to try and connect everything. Now, and obviously target Thawne as well. Now, Bart and Nora try to reassure Barry that there is still hope, like they were trying to do before. But Barry is just sort of locked into the thinking that Iris is gone, and he is just solely after Thawne. It's personal now. Now, to gain access, Barry is going to need a negative speed force connection, which is going to be Meena in this case. Now, she is the key to getting Barry to where he needs to go. So she plays an important part in this episode, but I think that's it. They probably maybe mishandled Meena a bit, but I think she was only really, like, I think it would have been hard to involve her too much in this finale, along with the other characters as well. Like, Bart and Nora are there, but really only there for a bit of the... That was actually surprised me how little of the episode they were actually in. And also Meena as well. But anyway, while all this is going on, Cecile starts to get a random voice in her head. And obviously, the Cecile part was always going to be a weak part of this episode, because it just doesn't feel like it needs to be in a finale, but it was there. It wasn't as bad as some of the other Cecile stuff that's gone on in previous episodes, so it felt like an improvement, even though it still wasn't that great. But Cecile gets a random voice in her head, with it being like an SOS from the regular Bashir or Psych. Now, it's him crying out for help to bring not only himself back, but the other forces as well. So that's sort of like the whole Cecile storyline throughout this episode, which involves Allegra as well. She's just sort of standing there and watching. Now, the next time we actually see Thawne is when he actually arrives in a pretty familiar area, and we see a photo of him and Iris. So this is like the Armageddon timeline, or like the reverse Flashpoint timeline. It's probably the best way to put it. And that was like the negative forces that made it that way. Now, the negative forces do reveal to Thawne that he is the negative speed force avatar. He just doesn't just tap into it. He's actually the avatar of it. And that's why the other Thawne needed to go, as he wasn't involved with any of this stuff. But they start to give this Thawne an enhancement. His eyes start to flicker like all the colors of the forces. And he's just sort of stationary, he's sort of frozen in time. Now, one of the big questions going into this episode was what the hell is going to go on with Iris? Because we know she wasn't dead. It probably didn't help them maybe like 2 or 3 days before this episode aired. The news came out that she'd signed on for season 9. So it's sort of like... Anyway, her death was like really rapid, so it would have been surprising if they killed her in that fashion. But Iris appears in a vacant area where this is also Damien Darhk. Now, at the time on Twitter, I was like, oh my god, Damien Darhk can't be this cameo that they were teasing. That surely can't be it. This can't be the cameo that they were teasing. And then I realized, oh no, I think they said that it was only one scene. So this isn't Damien Darhk because he's going to get multiple scenes. The cameo was literally Damien Darhk. Okay, so note to self, I think I put this on Twitter. I'm actually going to read my tweet word for word. Note to self, never listen again to Daniel Nicolette, who plays Cecile, or just a side character when it comes to hyping up a cameo or big moment on The Flash or just any show ever again. Why? Why would you say that? And she said it so far in advance. She got people excited. And I have to sort of target some of the people that watched the episode early because they sort of sided with the level that Daniel Nicolette hyped it up to be. Why? We just had Superman and Lois disappoint people to the next level yesterday, and they would have seen the Superman and Lois stuff as well. Like, I don't know. It really confuses me when people hype it up that much when they know what it is. And they know it's not that big. Let's be honest. No one cared that Damien Darhk was in this episode to any sort of massive level. You'd be like, okay, it's cool, Damien Dark's there. But really? Anyway, it didn't make people happy at the time. But I was thinking that. I was like, oh wait, they said it's just one scene. They said it was like a one scene thing. So it must be later in the episode. That never happened. So Damien Darhk apparently was the cameo, but it wasn't a cameo, it was a guest appearance. There's a difference. Anyway, let's move on. Let's not sit on like the stupid thing that Daniel Nicolette said. Anyway, Damien reveals that the negative forces used Iris as like an incubator and that she actually isn't dead. And Iris sort of feels that herself, that she isn't dead. But we learn that the time stone saved her, which is where they are. They're actually inside the time stone. Now, meanwhile, at the West household where this all connects, might I say, Joe is praying for Iris's safety, where he is then quickly joined by Jay and Joe and Garrick, who are tracking Iris, which leads them to the time stone that Joe was given by Damien Darhk at the end of Armageddon. And of course, Iris is inside of there, as we said before, but the big question is how they're going to get her out. Now, we knew the time stone was going to come back into play, because why would you introduce it at Armageddon? It seemed like them just planting a get out of, like, I don't know if it's a get out of jail free card, but at the same time, it just feels like it was there for the sake of being there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it was like this overall massive twist. And a lot of people thought that Joe was going to use the time stone to sort of replace Iris within the Still Force, but nothing happens to Joe. Joe is still Joe at the end of this season. So, and he's meant to be leaving the show as a regular, so he's not going to be appearing in that many episodes. So I guess that's season 9's job to set up, unless he appears in like the first episode or 2 of season 9. And then something happens to him where he goes away and he only appears in a few more episodes. I'm not too sure what they're going to do because they definitely do not set up Cecile leaving. So, yeah. But anyway, in regards to getting Iris out, it's not up to Joe or Joan or Jay or anything like that. Damien is able to motivate Iris and push her in the right direction, with Iris tapping into her connection to get connection to Barry to get out. So it wasn't up to anyone on the outside world. It's actually up to Iris herself with a bit of a push from Damien. Now, we're mentioning Cecile before, and she does go to meet Top and Queen of the Royal Flush Gang to get assistance in reaching the positive forces, because she took their powers, but she's not overly well versed in using them. So that she uses them, like the psychic abilities and stuff like that. And this brings out Bashir, who says that Iris's time sickness infected all of them, while also revealing that he was the one that allowed Cecile to take Top and Queen's powers to potentially allow, Cecile to help them. Now, Psych gets Cecile to put on his mask in order to assist with the other forces and helping them out. and breaking them out and with all their powers and everything like that. And as I said before, this wasn't my, I didn't really care about this portion of the episode. It was somewhat necessary, like in regards to getting the forces out, but like, I don't know if it was worth spending all those episodes before doing it. You know what I mean? Like using screen time. But I don't know, that's, I guess, up to a personal opinion in regards to what you think of Cecile's storyline as a character. Now, the first trial in regards to getting back at Thawne doesn't go too well, with Meena getting frustrated and sort of wanting to destroy the machine that gave her speed. However, Barry intervenes in order to spare the machine and put it to some good use. And this is using it to power up Meena to, full strength, full power, whatever you want to call it, and transfer that speed, that negative speed force energy over to Barry. Now, this works, allowing Barry to go inside of the negative speed force, where he sees Thawne just frozen there, mid process of change or whatever you want to call it from the other negative forces, and they're there to reveal that this is only happening because of Barry disconnecting the negative speed force from Thawne and upsetting the cosmic balance. Now, we sort of got this feeling even after Armageddon that this was going to come back and bite Barry on the ass. We weren't too sure exactly how. And then when the negative speed forces started to, or the negative forces, might I say, started to play into things like last episode, and even with Dion acting all weird, it seemed like that's how everything was going to play out. Now, Barry is just kicked out of the negative speed force, just booted out. You don't belong here, Barry, go away, which coincides with a mass amount of, I think it was negative kinetic tachyons, just going all over Central City, with this upgraded Thawne done from his change popping out. He's in this new black suit and all. It's all like messed up and not looking very good. And people saying, oh, this looks really ugly, it doesn't look nice. I think that was the point. And I think I said that in my set photo video when we went over this suit. I was like, it looks like it's intended to not look very good. Like it's meant to look corrupted and not look clean and smooth and everything like that, like with the other speedster suits we see. And we also see that his lightning is all the colors of the forces as well. And I must say, when Bart said that line, like, who is his new tailor? Satan? I had a laugh at that. I thought that was legitimately probably the funniest line in the episode. I don't know if anyone else laughed at that. Maybe it was just me, but I thought that was a funny line and probably the funniest line in the episode. But anyway, speaking of funny stuff, Thawne just starts killing people at will, just going, oh, attack, you're dead, just not really caring. Now we do have Barry, Meena, Bart, and Nora all going to take on Thawne, with them thinking they got him and knocked him out. But instead, it's revealed they attacked Bart, and Thawne had actually used the Sage Force or Psyche's powers to fool them into making them think they were attacking him, and he was actually in Bart's sort of place. And he then sends the other speedsters apart from Barry far back in time and sort of keeping them there because he can control the time stream with this negative still force and stuff. So Thawne is very overpowered with the other forces at hand. It's ridiculous. And this leads into a Barry versus Thawne fight where Thawne just easily freezes Barry in place and goes, I mean, seriously, you think you got a chance? And Thawne's sort of taunting Barry that, he should have just killed him, in Armageddon. But, he took the speed away. You've created this big mess for yourself. Thawne goes for an attack on Barry, but it's stopped in midair. And obviously this really confuses Thawne, but it was stopped by Dion. Not negative Dion, but the regular or positive Dion. And the positive forces are back thanks to Psyche and Cecile and what they did earlier in the episode. And the positive forces all inject themselves into, and their powers into Barry. So it's an even fight now. We have a leveled up Barry versus a leveled up Thawne. I guess it's fitting for season 8 and its finale that you get the most leveling up of all leveled ups in the most leveled up season of all leveled up seasons. That was insane. There was so much going on as well. I didn't really like the psych tentacles, whatever they're called. I've never liked them. It didn't work here either. It looked weird when Thawne was using them. I was like, just use your speed or something. Like, why use these tentacles? But everything else was good. During the fight, Iris appears before Joe, Jay, and Joan. God, that's annoying to say. The triple J's, anyway. With them seeing the carnage going on downtown between Thawne and Barry. Now, Jay takes Iris there, who talks down Barry due to the fact that they will keep going and sort of going until they destroy the city, pretty much what Armageddon was. So you can sort of see the connections that are all going on now. So Barry stops the fight. He's like, look, I got to listen. And well, at least he stops the fight on his side. And he goes into like that meditation mode, like we saw in episode 15 in the Still Force. And though Thawne tries to attack him, it just does nothing. It sort of just goes straight through Barry, not affecting him at all. As if it's like that's just sort of like a figment. Or I don't know what you would call just like a hologram or something, a Barry or something like that. And Thawne begs for more power to try and overcome Barry because they're pretty even at this stage. And this unfortunately tips the scales, with Thawne unleashing this crazy pulse of energy over Central City. Almost look like like a crisis thing, or even like, in like that crossover when that Vandal Savage put that pulse of energy all over the world, or whatever it was, all over the cities and stuff like that. And it's just hitting and presumably killing everything in its path, destroying all these buildings. However, Barry in his meditation is able to, well, reverse it all, I guess you could say, which sends it all back into Thawne, just overpowering him and killing him and sending him into nothingness. And that's it. Thawne is erased, and he is erased. He's no longer existing in this timeline. And this allows Barry being able to bring back the other speedsters that were lost in the timeline as well. And the universe is just able to sort of like reset itself after what's just gone down. And we do learn that everyone is sort of clean of any bad stuff that's going on. Like Iris is clear of the time sickness and all that. And there's no issues with Thawne throughout the timeline. There's no sign of him, so that's all good. But we also learn that the block device is no longer functioning, which means no more speed for Meena, with her getting one last reminder of Eobard, which is his yellow tie, which I thought was nice, because I think he took it off before they did the speed transfer last episode. So I think that makes sense that they had the yellow tie. Now, in regards to whether this means we see Meena again, I guess it depends if we go back to Fast Track Labs. I'm not too sure. I guess we'll find out. Now, there's a lot of like going back to normal, so like de-leveling down or leveling down. That's what de-leveling down, I think, makes sense. Leveling down, because Cecile also goes back to how she was before, just her empath powers. However, there's one little smidge of leveling up left for this season, and apparently now Cecile has telekinetic powers, where she can just move stuff with her mind. I don't know. I'm not too sure what they're doing with Cecile. I have no answers. I have a lot of questions, but no answers. But anyway, back at the Central City Citizen, we have Tinya Wazo for one little last appearance this season with Iris, where the Flash runs in her mother, who is now out of the Still Force. Now, the thing with Tinya is that in the comic, which is canon and connected to what's going to be going on in the Flash season 9, she was at Argus training with Cisco, and that's not set up here at all. But then again, this could be done off screen. It could be referenced really early into season 9 when we get there. Because the events from the comics, especially what happens that sets up the stuff in season 9, could happen in between season 8 and 9. So maybe in like a month or something, they recommend Tinya going to Argus to train with Cisco and all that stuff. So I'm not really going to question it too much. I think I'll question it in season 9 if there's no reference to it. But back at Caitlin's place, as I assumed, I didn't think we'll get any major Caitlin stuff in this episode outside of a cliffhanger, and that's exactly what happens. There is a malfunction in the cryopod after she enters it, towards the end of last episode, or like middle way through last episode, or whatever it was, with Chillblaine rushing to get Caitlin Ann. However, it's Caitlin no more, and it's no longer Frost. It's someone else. I'm going to assume it's Killer Frost. Now, I was expecting an icicle to just come shooting out and kill Chillblaine. That's what I thought was going to happen, but they end it there. So I think Daniel Panabaker said that we'd know exactly where Caitlin was going as we head into season 9 out of season 8, and I think that scene sets it up pretty obviously. There's been a change. Now, whether it's an actual proper evil Killer Frost, that's for us to wait and find out. But they definitely left it, on a pretty loose cliffhanger, because we didn't actually get to see her. We just know that there's a definite change and someone else is in there now. But the end scene is Barry and Iris together, catching up, I guess you could say, where the talk on the negative Speed Force needing a new avatar is brought up. And this is when we actually cut to not another location in Central City. Well, I guess it is another location somewhere, but it's in 2049. We see a calendar that says 2049, and we see a blue crystal in the lab that appears to have flames on it, which the only thing I can think of when I see that is that it's meant to be a take on like the flame talisman of Cobalt Blue. Are we finally getting Cobalt Blue after all these years? But it's set in 2049. So what does that mean? I am as curious can be, because if you've followed me for a while, you know Cobalt Blue has been the one villain I've desperately wanted to see. I didn't care about Godspeed. I didn't care about all these other characters. Cobalt Blue was the villain I wanted to see, because I think there's an interesting dynamic that would make a great story. My only issue is that it's in 2049. So I'm going to have to wait and see how this plays out. Maybe it's just a relic that's in 2049 and it still happens in present day. That's for us to wait and find out. We've still got a while until season 9 comes out. But if that is Cobalt Blue's, like a take on Cobalt Blue's talisman or something like that, I'm excited. And I can't wait to see what happens in season 9 if that's the case. But overall, this finale I thought was pretty good. but it definitely had some weak points. But they were the weaker points in, that have been popping up throughout this season. I think it did have a bit of an issue with balancing the fact that the story was written as it could be like a series finale, but then it also had to push on and just to be like a normal season finale and set up another season. So it might have felt weird to some people. I went in knowing that was going to be the case, so I was sort of prepared for it. I didn't really notice it too much, but I can imagine people that you know maybe weren't overly familiar with that might feel it feels a bit weird. You know what I mean? But I think they wrapped up everything they needed to. Even though I don't think there was too much because some of the other episodes previously had done all that as well. But I'm excited to see where they go in season 9, especially with a couple of different storylines because we know Bloodwork's meant to be coming back in. They've obviously got the stuff with what's ever going on with Caitlyn, or was it Killer Frost, whatever it is. And then this potential Cobalt Blue stuff. Man, at least you got a good 3 storylines there for season 9. And maybe there's a bit of a team up there. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But that gets me excited. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions about everything from this finale, as well as this season, what you thought of it as a whole. Very curious to read what you guys think. And yeah, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I'll obviously have some videos breaking down the end of this season over the probably within the next week or so. But yeah, so keep your eyes out for that. But until the next video, guys, I'll catch you later. Goodbye.